Hey, thanks for joining. It's Corey of Blue Falcon Board Gaming. If you're new to the channel, I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran who started the Blue Falcon Board Gaming Group in the Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia tri-state area with the hopes of promoting positive mental health through board games, as well as to make board games more accessible to the community by hosting, co-hosting free events, doing giveaways. And today I've got Nick Sparkman with me. Nick, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so who's Nick? Give us a little bit of background
Oh,
on you.
I am a board game lover and a Navy vet. I'm a dad of one almost 3-year-old, and I'm a content creator for TikTok and Instagram under @Sparkman.
So I think you might be the first other vet that I've interviewed here. So,
Yeah,
this might be
it
a little
was
new type of interview, get a little bit of military stuff going.
it was the first one.
I think you are the first one.
Oh, I am the first. Oh, cool. All right. I'll take that badge.
Yeah, yeah. So, what branch, MOS, all of that good stuff, how many years?
I was Navy for 9 years. My rate was machinist mate. I made it all the way up to E5. So I did 5 years on the USS Nimitz, and then I did 3 years at Trident Refit Facility Bangor, where I worked on submarines. While I was on the Nimitz, I did hydraulics for 4 years in auxiliaries division, and then switched over to IMO division, where I did like QA and some technical library stuff. So yeah.
So, what year did you go in? What started your
Uh, so
9 years?
so it's funny. Funny enough, I was supposed to go in 2013, right after I graduated high school. And a week before I was supposed to go to boot camp, a friend of mine who actually had just gotten out of Marine Corps boot camp decided to kick a door into my toe and went into the nail bed. And so I couldn't go to boot camp. I got cycled out and then I cycled back in. So I didn't go in until 2014, August time frame. I actually got the notification that 9 years ago I graduated boot camp not too long ago. So, um, and then I got out in, I think it was July 1st this year. So,
So, I got to ask, because I'm a Raider
mm,
with the VA, you got all your
yeah.
VA stuff taken care of. That first year is crucial, man. I'm
Uh,
telling you, that first year
yeah,
out is
no,
crucial.
I know. I actually, at 1 o'clock, I've got my benefits call to talk
All
about my
right.
disabilities and stuff. So,
Cool deal.
yeah.
If you've got any questions after that, let me know.
Oh, yeah, we'll
Because
do.
it's probably with the public contact rep and stuff. I did public contact for
All right on.
about 2 years before I switched to become a rater. Like I started on the post side.
Mhm.
So in the claims process, you've got pre-dev, which they'll request all the records, stuff like that. Then it goes to a rater, and then after the rater does everything, it goes to post, and they just double check that the notification letters look correct, and they do all of the money side of it, and they'll release the
Gotcha.
funds. So I did
Cool.
post for a year. I did public contact for about 2.5 years, and then I just hit my year mark as a rater. So any
Very cool.
questions, just hit me up afterwards, and
Yeah,
we'll
we'll
definitely
do.
get you walked through it. Because I look at it, man. So I love it because you've got that same board game mindset. So I look at every
Yeah.
claim as a board game. So it's one of those. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
I've got the 38 CFRs, my regulations and the laws and all of that. I've got our procedure manuals. These are my rules. The
Yep.
claim file is my pieces, and how can I maximize, the benefits that I can give this veteran. So
Oh, man. Yeah.
it's you can never turn it off.
I, dude, I tried doing that with like the QA paperwork while I was working on submarines, and it just like, I could not get it to correlate. I don't know what it is about QA paperwork and stuff, but I can't do it. I don't know.
So what
I
got you
tried.
into board games?
So, in so when I was growing up, I had a friend who loved Risk, and so we'd always play Risk on game nights, and that kind of evolved into like we'd play Bang, and we'd play like we do little like murder mystery dinners and dress up and the whole 9 yards. But the most consistent thing was Risk, and I didn't even think of it as like a hobby. Um, and then when I think it was like my third year in the military, a couple of friends introduced me to Ticket to Ride, I was like, oh man, this is great. Like this is just a one-off thing. So we had our board game closet. It was all really basic, and we had this thing in Seattle called Snowmageddon. It was the worst snowstorm they had seen in a long time. And I remember I got off work and I went immediately to Barnes and Noble because I was like, what are we going to do if we get snowed in for 3 or 4 days at a time? I was like, I don't want to watch Netflix all day. And we had been talking about doing Catan. So I picked up Catan and I picked up Dutch Blitz. And we played those two games over and over and over and over during those few days. And that just like jump started everything. So next thing I knew, it was every weekend I was going back to Barnes and Noble to get a new game. And then my wife introduced me to board game TikTok. She started sending me the videos, and up until that point, I've been very against it. And so once I finally got on my break for shore duty, that's when it all just kind of came to a head, and it was collecting and it was doing videos, and we were playing games a lot. And then my son was born, and the playing games came down, but the collecting went up. So yeah, and then I think it was August of last year I started working on Apothecary, and it was just kind of like my wife had said the word apothecary to her mom in relation to a book that she was reading, and a light bulb went off, and I just like grabbed a notebook and started writing, and next thing I knew I had like a little index card prototype with really poorly drawn, and like there was a life system and it was going to be a party game, and that kind of evolved with a friend of mine into something else. And then I posted a video on TikTok being like, hey, so I have this prototype, like where do I go from here? And Josh from One First reached out and was like, hey, let's talk about it. And he's in West Seattle, so I was like, you're like an hour away, can we meet in person and talk about this? And so I did, and he really liked the game. We finally got it to a point where he was like, yep, I'm cool with this, let's sign it. All right. Okay, well, let's do the thing. So that's what really, all of those things together really just has just enforced me being in the space.
Yeah, so
So
Apothecary Plague Doctors is your game. It's on GameFound, or it's coming to GameFound.
yep.
October 31st is the launch date, if I remember
Mm-hmm.
correctly. Okay.
Yep.
And it's got the description here is the Black Death is coming. Take on the role of the rival apothecary shop owners from the Renaissance period in Apothecary Plague Doctors 2 to 4 player card game. You'll draft ingredients and actions to help you complete orders, hinder your opponents, and distract the guards. If you're planning on selling some poison on the side, of course, the player with the highest combined value of orders at the end of the game wins and just might survive the plague. So what's what would be like a kind of like a round? What would a round look like of the game?
So a round would look like so you start off in the board, so you've got your ingredient cards and they fill the garden appropriately. Those go face up in a row depending on your player count. You've got your agenda row, which is your action cards and your quick action cards. Those are also face up depending on your player count. And then you've got the order board, which is where your orders are. On the order cards, you've got symbols for ingredients that you will need to discard in order to complete that order and bring it in front of you for those points. So on your turn, you go through 5 phases. There's our optional phase, which is cultivate. That's the first one. And you get to till the garden or plan ahead. And what that allows you to do is look at the garden or the agenda, take 2 cards from the garden, discard them, and replace them. So you've got some options potentially. And the same thing for plan ahead, but you can only do 1 for the agenda cards. So you can choose to do that, or you can choose to skip it, and then you'll go into your gather phase, where you'll take 3 cards into your hand. You can take from the ingredients deck, the garden, the agenda deck, the agenda. We've got water cards in a well off to the side, and we've got prayer cards, which are wild in the church. If you take from the church, it costs you 2 cards. So once you've decided which ones you're going to take into your hand, you then go to your action and complete orders phase, where you can play actions, complete orders in any order that you want to. And then you go to your restock phase. So anytime you take a card from anywhere, it's got to be restocked. You got to set it up for the next player. So you restock the garden, the agenda, and then you restock the order cards on the order board. And then as order cards come out, events will happen. And so when you flip over an event, it can be anything from like, all players discard all ingredients in their hands, or all players swap hands clockwise. We've got events that cause you to like lose cards in the garden or the agenda, cards that'll reset everything. We've also got like rhyme order or ride, oh my gosh, rhyme events that go through Ring Around the Rosies. And if at any point all four of those events are played in a game, the game immediately ends. So we've got a bunch of little things. We've also got season events that will like introduce a new rule for the game. And this is just a pile of 25 events that get shuffled into the order deck randomly depending on your player count. So every game is going to be a little bit different. So once you're done restocking, you then look at your hand, and if you have more than 10 cards, you have to discard down to 10, and that's your expiration phase. And then it goes to the next player, and the game goes like that in turns until the order deck is gone and the Black Death is revealed, and then everybody gets one last turn depending on the score, and the person with the highest points wins. So
Very nice. So you said it was last August timeframe that you started working on this?
Yep.
So what do you think has been the biggest unexpected challenge that's popped up with designing the game?
Oh man, balance. Balance has been huge. I'm actually planning on doing a video on it. I have this whole sheet of paper. Me and Josh sat down, and I was like, all right, I can't do the math on this. Like, you need to tell me how to go about this. And he like, his brain just works like that. So he just like took it, made a graph, was like, okay, so we've got, these ingredients and these action cards. We need orders that match up. They should be about 16 of each ingredients per order, blah, blah, blah. And he just like wrote it all out and was like, okay, here you go. Make these cards. But okay. So, I mean, I guess it wasn't as challenging for me, but with that comes so much like you want to play test it, right? You want to make sure that you've got it all correct. Even though it's good on paper, that doesn't mean that it plays well. So even though we have, X amount of guards cards and that worked for a 2-player game, because guards will come out and royally screw you over if you've got any poison that you've completed, because poison orders are high risk, high reward. So they're higher average points, but if a guards event comes out, if you're not ready, you lose points for it. So like we were playing with, I think, 6 guards cards, and we thought that we had it balanced, and we did some games at Gen Con, and there was one game, this dude, it was the only person, luckily, but he walked away so mad because he went with that strategy, and like 4 guards event came out one after the other. So he went from having 20 plus points in the middle of the game to having nothing. And it was like, oh, okay, all right, maybe we take some of the guards cards out. So it's just stuff like that. Especially in a game where you have alternative setups and things are kind of randomized, it makes it difficult. So
Now, how involved were you with like the artwork decisions and stuff like that? Because you said one first game's picked it up, so are they doing most of that side of it, or have you been involved with that as well?
One First has offered me a really unique opportunity, and Josh's vision for it is like putting designers first in the industry rather than doing what you usually see with like a 4%, 2 to 4% royalty percentage. So like his model is he wants to bring designers in, have them put up a lot of work up front, but give them a much higher percentage in the long run after costs are recouped. So they're paying for the art, but I'm very involved in what that looks like, and um, I'm free to give feedback. And like, yes, I don't have final say, but I do carry my opinion carries a lot of weight. So
Yeah, that's always good because you don't
yeah,
want to design your baby basically, and then
right.
it just get completely changed up. Like it goes from like the Black Death is coming to like a bakery type game or something instead of an apothecary game.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. And
so
when I initially brought it to him, it was like it was going to be like a fantasy theme. It was going to be that typical like witch's brew apothecary, right? And I asked him, I was like, what would make more sense for this? Does it, because I love like historically accurate games. So one of my favorite games is Korra Rise of an Empire. And the events in that game are true to form historical events from that period. And it always ends with the invasion of Persia. So like that really intrigued me in a design from a design perspective. And so I was playing around with the idea of doing this like a historical game, and he was like, "Yes, no, no, screw the witches brew thing. Like that's already been done. Nobody's done this style, so run with this."
what's some of the interesting historical stuff that we might see in the game?
Um,
I'm assuming you guys did the research on it and everything. You seem like you would dive deep into that. So, what's like the most interesting historical thing that you think it's in the game?
so I had initially designed it to be medieval during the very first plague that we saw in history for the Black Death. And obviously that comes with like the idea of the plague doctors. We actually had to shift that to like late Renaissance period because you look at the history and plague doctors, the masks didn't come until that time period once they were a little more situated and had a more of like a response. Um, I think when you look at medieval medicine, you'd be really surprised at what people did and got away with. Like, um, for instance, we've got leeches because there was this huge thing about humor balancing. It's the belief that there's like four humors in the body, and it's like bile, urine, X and X. And if your humors are ever out of balance, that's what makes you sick. So they would use leeches to like cycle out blood as one of those humors to try and get people to feel better. But they would like reuse leeches. And so people would end up with blood transfusions and, you know, those diseases. Um, you've got the idea of like physicers who were the surgeons of the time, just like, well, I, it's infected, so we're just going to chop it off. Like, and not in a fun way. But so, like, we tried to incorporate a lot of that and we tried to make it dark. Um, we took some examples of like, so apothecaries obviously are known for having their own gardens. But there's typically like a church in town who has a public garden where people can go and pick things that they need and contribute to the church. Um, obviously on top of marketplaces and whatnot. But yeah, so I also, not historical, but you might get it. There's one card called Late Night Acquisitions. Yeah, yeah.
You're not
For
stealing anything. You're just, stealthily
you're
transporting
just
equipment to another location.
right. Oh no, the door was open. No
Yeah.
one's around, so I'm just gonna take those from you. Um,
Yeah. You're just borrowing it.
yeah. So I learned a lot. I do wish that I had done a little bit more in that. Like there were books that I could have bought that were like $80 that would have given me a full history on medieval medicine and really given me a peek into that. But I think that we did a pretty good amount of research, and we also I actually am hoping to get in with the local apothecary and take them my order cards, and be like, hey, do these names make sense? Or like, hey, these are the ingredients. What does this make? and actually work with them on naming things and give them a credit in the rule book. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. So it looks like
Yeah.
on the GameFound site, because you've got the preview page up. It looks like caramel, mushroom, sage, garlic, and snail slime are some of the example ingredient cards.
Yep. Yep.
Very nice. So with you getting into game design, if you didn't have to worry about buying the rights to an IP, what IP would you want to
Mm,
make a game about?
mm. I love this question.
You can get anything you want. You don't have to worry about,
Anything that
if Disney owns
there's,
it or anything like.
I mean, if it was like, as of right now, there's two. So it's the ACOTAR series IP. So if anybody doesn't know, that's A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's by Sarah J. Maas, and it's very fantasy, Fey world. And I think there's a lot of room for, an area control game, or like I would really love to like work with that author and be like, hey, what kind of story could we tell in a game here that would give your fans like a peek into like a prequel, right? Because there's this in the series, there's a talk about this war that happened before the books, and I'd really love to do something like that. Um, and I have other ideas that are like within the IP that could be feasible. Um, but I think the game that I really, really want to make with an IP, if I had to pick, would be the Red Rising series. Um, and I know Stonemaier already did a game, but I didn't feel like it was fully representative of the series itself. They took the bright side of the series and made a game off of that, but there's a whole other world that they didn't delve into, um, especially with the later entries in the series. So I want to make a board that has like the solar system, and I want every round to be like moving planets. So when you plan your movement on your spaceships, like you have to plan your trajectory via the planets and stuff, and like have moons and do the whole thing. I think that would be the IP I would take and run with. It would take a few
Yeah, I
years of
mean, you can almost
development.
get like a oh, what's it called? Not a mandala, but basically where you've got gears, and as
Hmm.
one turns, it turns the rest of the planets and stuff. That'd be really
Yeah.
cool.
Hmm. And I'd want to make it like true to form with our solar system, so like it moves the same way over the course of a year, right? So yeah.
That'd be a really cool round tracker too. Like
Hmm.
once the sun makes a complete rotation, or once this planet makes a complete rotation around the sun, like this is what triggers endgame.
Yeah. Or
That
like say you like start like building a ship, right, in your dockyards on a moon of Venus, and then so you put this card off to the side that says, okay, after a year that ship will be ready to go. Put one down, and that's hidden information for you. So like I don't know. There's so many elements I could play with, and I would yeah.
so I do it a lot, and I'm curious if you do, because you said you got a 3-year-old. Are you ever watching like kid shows and just being like, "Oh, that would make a really good game. Like that would be a cool." Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. It's
Yeah,
not
I,
just
I
me
did
then.
that. No, it's not. I did that with Bluey. Actually, I had
Yeah.
yeah. I
Such a
because
good
the
show.
games, yeah, they have games out right now and they're terrible. They're awful. Like why? I want a game that invites the same creativity, but also is fun for parents too. Because if the parents aren't having fun, they're just gonna pull it out and be like, "Here, play with my Monopoly money." You know, I so
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
we've
right there with
got,
you though.
what do we got over there? We got Shadowlands, and then there's like a Bluey playtime type thing, and it's basically
Hmm.
you chuck a dice, you move that many spaces,
Yeah,
and you may have to draw from a deck, and it's like, oh, name 3 things in the house that are blue, or 3 things in the house that are red, or whatever. Or then
yeah.
it's like a little trivia deck, and it's like, oh, what's Bandit's brother's name or something. I'm like, I don't know. Like,
That's a little. I feel like that's a little far reaching for like a kids game. I don't know. I like the like look around the house and find things that are blue. Like that's really cool. Um, that's a really cool mechanic. I like that. But
Yeah, I think the other show, it was The Deep. It's on
mhm.
Netflix, but that would be a really cool one. So basically, it's like a family that is they do all this submarine stuff, and it turns out like their heritage is basically like they're protectors of like where the Kraken's located, so they have to like keep it secured or
Uh-huh.
whatever. But like they're going around and they're fighting different, enemies of the sea and stuff like that, people that are trying to pollute and all of this other stuff. But it's got like just like the lore behind it is actually, I'm like,
Yeah.
I can get into this. Like this is a
Yeah.
kid show that I'm like, okay, cool, I can watch this.
Nice. See, and I've already got ideas popping up. I'm like, tower defense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gundam would be another good IP. Like do something where you're like drafting to build a mech,
Hmm.
and then the end of the game, like you have to fight. Like
Yeah.
you've got some sort of battle system. It's like, okay, who built the most efficient Gundam for
Yeah.
the during the game?
Oh my gosh. I with an IP like that, I feel like you could. I mean that's like a that would definitely be a AAA game, and you just introduce like it'd be really cool to have a mini that you get to build too. Like, oh, we have this part, you get to build your little mech and then put it out on the board and fight it out too. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Oh man, I didn't pull one for you. Let me get. We got to see if
Oh, I was just watching this
you.
with
Yeah.
Apex. Yeah,
Well, I
I'm
just did
ready.
one though. So Jason from the Champion faction actually dethroned Matthew.
Nuh-uh.
So 311 is now the new score to beat. He got number one answer on 4 of the 5 questions. So let's pull you a new card here. So we got Family Feud Fast Money. I'm not going to throw a timer up, just act like there's 20 seconds.
Yeah,
All right. So name an activity that is easier to do when it's windy.
flying a kite.
Name a word that rhymes with teeny.
Weenie.
Name something that people get paid to do that parents do every day for free.
Babysit.
Name something that seems to sleep a lot.
Newborns.
Okay. And name something snakes do that people don't.
Eat mice whole. Slither.
All right. Which
We'll go with the first.
which
We'll
one
go
we
with the
going
first
with?
one on that. We'll go with the first
Okay.
one. Yeah.
All right. So an activity it's easier to do when it's windy. You said fly a kite. Number one, 89 points. Name a word that rhymes with teeny. You said weenie, 71 points. Number one. Something people get paid to do that parents do every day for free. You had said babysit as number two, but only by 1 point at 32 points. Number one was cook. Something that sleeps a lot. You said a baby. That's number two at 32 points. And then something a snake does that people don't. Eat rats. Number three for 14 points. So 238 overall.
Uh, what was number
So
one on that? On the snake one? Slither?
Slither. Yep.
Knew
And
it.
that would have been
Dang it.
53 points. So that'd still been 277.
It's fine.
Yeah,
I like that. That's fun.
it's just a little something fun to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me a reason to tag y'all.
Yeah. I mean,
Some
it's good
posts.
content too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's fun too because like some of them I'm just like, where did they survey these people at? Like one was
Yeah.
an animal's legs that you would see on a restaurant menu.
Frogs.
Okay,
But
see,
yeah.
frogs was number one answer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've never been to a restaurant with frog legs. Like I know that frog
See,
legs is a thing, but like chicken legs or crab legs, I would expect to be number one because that's so much more, you
right,
know,
but you don't,
that's
but
out there.
when you go to chicken places, you don't ask for chicken leg. You ask for a drumstick, right? I think,
the leg's a leg.
yeah, I think the reason frog comes up is because I just imagine like, because I've never seen it either. I've never been to a restaurant that's like, oh, look at these frog legs. I
Yeah.
just like imagine in a French restaurant, like that's one of the things on the menu is frog legs. Just like, nope, no, thank you.
Yeah, they're just surveying Louisiana. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
what
yep,
do y'all got down here?
frog
All
legs.
right. So, Nick, where can people find you at? What's your, what social medias? Where do you want them to go at?
So you can find me at Sparkmanic on TikTok and at Spark_Manic on Instagram. Um, you can probably find me and my links on the Apothecary pre-launch page. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm dabbling here and there with YouTube, but I don't think I'm there yet. I need a studio before I can start making long form content.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear my
So,
ducks in the background or not. They're like right
mhm.
by the back window here, just going crazy.
Nice.
I'm just like, I need to soundproof this stuff. Yeah, so I'll drop your link tree and all of that in the video description here, and then obviously have the GameFound pre-launch page for Apothecary. So that's October 31st that's going to launch.
Yep.
That looks like that is, what is that, a Tuesday?
Next
Yeah, it
Tuesday,
looks like
so
next Tuesday. So today's the
a week from
23rd, so
tomorrow.
next Tuesday.
Getting there. So close. I'm so
Absolutely.
excited. I've got a lot of content getting ready to roll out for it. I just got to do some sound editing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got my game in the works right now, and it's with the artist and everything, and I'm
Yeah.
not looking forward to the Kickstarter. The
Are you
Kickstarter just
self-publishing?
manicness of
Ah, yeah. That's I. I mean, you already talked to Matt. Talk to Matt. He he knows his stuff, and
yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be stressful. It's gonna be, but it'll be good though. What's your game?
So it's called Hen House Heist, and
Okay.
it's family weight. Basically, there's 12 chicken coops. There's 4 coops in a row, and you're playing as foxes that are trying to steal Farmer Indell's eggs or chickens. Farmer Indell, so Farmer
Like
Nick
that.
Dell. Um, but basically, you're gonna at the beginning of each round, everybody rolls all of their dice, and there's 6 dice, and then you can do one of 3 actions on your turn. So you can discard any number of dice, and you can add them, subtract them, or do a combination. Whatever number you make is what coop you will put your fox token on. Each fox token has a hidden number on the back, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, and that is your secret bid. So that's your sly value. So you put it out. The second action that you can do is you can just discard a die to re-roll your available die. And then the third action is you can discard a die to draw a scheme card. And your scheme card may be something like win coop number 3, or
Yeah,
win any coop with this bid value exactly.
that's cool.
But you just keep going around until everybody is either out of dice or out of tokens, and then you reveal coop by coop, and whoever's got the highest bid total for that coop wins, and they'll collect the chickens from that coop. And the first row is 2 points per chicken, second row is 3 points per chicken, and the third row is 4 points per chicken, because 9, 10, 11, 12, you're gonna have to spend more dice to get those numbers than if you're just doing a 1 through 4 or anything. So
Yeah,
but each round, there's hounds that are out that will block off that coop. So you just randomly roll a d12, and whatever pops up, that's what coop gets blocked off for that round, so nobody can go there. There's you also roll 3 dice to put out some baby chicks, and those are just 1 point each, and that's just to kind of represent new chickens hatching or
yeah.
whatever. So you got little baby chick meeples, and then you got the big chick meeples. But you just continue that way until everybody's been the start player a certain number of times, depending on how many people are playing, and then you just figure out who's got the most points.
That's awesome. I'll back that. That sounds great. That
It's
sounds that
fun.
actually sounds like what?
I've had 118 playtesters so far. It's got I took it to a convention, and I didn't tell people that I was the one designing it. I'm like, hey, I'm just showing off this game, And at the end, this one guy's like, "Can I buy this? Like, is this available?" And I was like, "You just made my day, my man."
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
like that's whenever I started
Love it.
knowing that, like, okay, I'm getting close. And then I was
Yeah.
at another convention, and I was hosting some scheduled times, doing just play test of it. And then it was in between two of the scheduled times, and I was at the table right next to it playing another game with my buddies. And this couple walk up, and she's like, "Hey, can we play your game without you?" And she's like, "I don't mean it like that. Like, you're in the middle of the game. Like, I just don't want you to have to like get up in the middle." But she's like, "We really want to play your game again." I was like, "Yeah, I'll show you the 2-player variant, and you guys can give me feedback on that real quick or whatever." So I'm like,
That's
"You've got an
awesome.
entire library here to
Yeah.
pick from on top of the play to win section, and you want to come back and play my prototype again?" Like,
Yeah. That's a good feeling, man. I
oh, dude, it is so good.
ah, I will say, like, I was in a real bad slump for a while with Apothecary, and going to Gen Con and actually running the events just like perked me right up.
Yep.
Because hearing the feedback from people who had never played it before, who didn't know anything coming into it, all they had was a name for the description, and a little like blurb that I had written. And so people come up to the booth and be like, what drew you to this? And they're like, "Oh, the name." Or they'd be like, "Oh, the description." I was like, "Hey, I wrote the description." Oh, and then you get really good feedback, and it's always a good feeling.
Oh yeah.
So, hell
Yeah.
yeah.
I just want to see people enjoying it, just
Yep.
enjoying games, playing games together. Because at
Yeah.
first you're like, "Oh, okay, this one, like, I'm just chucking dice or whatever, and I'm going to put out my stuff." But then like people play it again, and they're like, "Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't put out my 4 at first to make sure that I win that coup. If I should like throw my 1 down to make other people think that it's my 4, so they spend their high
Right.
numbers. That way I can get the coups I actually want later on." I'm like, there you go. Like,
There you go.
you got a
It
little bit of
sounds a
bluffing
lot.
here.
Yeah, it sounds almost like kind of like a mix of like raw and furnace. It's really cool. I like that.
Mhm.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was
Right
just
on.
kind of like what you said. I was taking the kiddo to the mother-in-law's, and I was watching a Dice Tower video. The night before, I had played Francis Drake. So it's got like that hidden bid aspect of it in the round.
Yeah.
Um, and then I've been playing a bunch of Mountain Goats and like Sequoia from All Play.
Mhm.
So it's got like that dice combo, like you go to that tile type thing.
Right.
And I forget what Dice Tower list it was, but Z was going over something, and it had a fox theme to it. And it just like all hit me at once on the drive home. So I got home and I was
Nice.
busting out, index cards. My wife's like, "What are you
Yep.
doing?" I'm like, "Make it a game. Leave me alone." like, that was a
Yeah.
Saturday. Next thing I know, it's like Monday morning, and I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
that was a manic episode.
Yep. Yeah. Uh-huh. It's so crazy because I haven't made a prototype in a while, but when I get that itch, like there's no calming it down at
Yeah.
all. Like get it to the table right. It can be chicken scratch, like, and then I'm like, "Babe, sit down. We're gonna play a game really quick." And she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, all right. Is this gonna change 6 times within the next 2 weeks?" And I'm like, "Yes, probably, but here we
Really?
go." Yep. Feel it, man.
It was funny too because I did the same thing. I was like, "Mo, come play this with me." She's like, "Well, you got to go get food after this." I'm like, "All right, cool. Like, I'll fly, I'll buy. Got it."
Hmm.
We played. She beat me. I'm like, "Of course." Like,
Yep.
because my wife's not a board gamer at
That's
all.
that's how you
And
know
I'm
it's
like,
good.
"You beat me every time. Like, you just beat me at my own game."
Yep.
like,
I'm at like 80% I lose
mhm.
Apothecary. That's my win percentage. It's just 20%.
Yeah.
And
On my BGG
yeah,
stats, it's 32%
yeah,
has been my win rate. So
right on.
it's a good feeling, man. It's a
Yeah.
good feeling
Yeah.
whenever like an 11-year-old can beat you at your own game, though, because then
Yes.
it's working.
Yeah. When does that come out? When does that drop?
I'm shooting for Q2 of 2024.
Okay.
So I'd like to launch the week of Geekway in St.
Mhm.
Louis, and then do like a bunch of events and stuff at Geekway. But I'm not setting like a hard date for me, because I mean
Yeah.
stuff can pop up, whatever. And I'm not going to set a hard date or anything like that. And no need to add extra stress to it. That's just a made up number or whatever. So I want to make sure
Yeah.
everything's good, but I'm shooting for Q2.
Yeah.
Once I get all the artwork and stuff done, I've been talking to a BGA developer though, and I want to get it on BGA first. That way, it might create a little bit of buzz and stuff. But then
Yeah.
also in the Kickstarter, be like, hey, if you want to play this, decide if it's right for you or anything like that, you can play for free here on BGA. So
Nice. Love it. Right on, man.
all right,
Have
well,
you
Nick, I appreciate.
oh no, last one. Have you have you tried getting Mondo on at all? Because
Yeah,
he's a
yeah, I interviewed
yeah.
him.
Oh, you did already? Oh,
Yep.
he's a vet.
Oh, is he? I did not
Yeah.
realize that.
Yeah, he
Oh,
was Navy. He only did
oh,
one enlistment, but so I'm number two then. But
yeah,
again,
I did not
Mondo,
realize that
always
Mondo
stealing
was a
things from me.
veteran.
Hmm. Anyway, yeah, thank you, man. This was great.
Yeah, I
Really
appreciate
appreciate
the
it.
time, man.